Call to order this meeting of the Village of Ashcroft Council for Monday, March 22nd, 2021. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Anstead. Are there any errors or omissions or anything to be added? No? On the question, all those in favor? Carried. We have the minutes of the regular meeting of council that was held on March 8th, 2021. I'll move that we accept those minutes of that meeting as presented.
Second.
Councillor Davenport seconds. Any errors or omissions? Nope, seeing none. On the question, all those in favor? Carried. We have one delegation tonight. That is Vision Check for Ashcroft, a presentation by Anne McKague and Hannah Frains. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Hello. Are we receiving?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thanks very much. And a big thank you to Daniela for allowing me to scooch in. I would, thank you, big thank you. I hope to take about 7 minutes, and I regret to inform you that Hannah's not available. She is a student and she's in some other Zoom conference right now. So I will try and I will share my screen. Oh, but I'm disabled. That's never happened before. The host disabled the participant screen sharing.
Let me try and make host.
That's a joke for Jessica. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm the host now. All right. And here we are. Love Ashcroft, where wellness awaits. We want you to urge you to embrace your branding, where wellness awaits, as you develop your Love Ashcroft campaign and invite tourists to town. Oh, next slide, somebody. We are presenting through cyberspace, but fully grounded and appreciative of the unceded territories of the Inkleputin and the Shwekton peoples. We live at the intersection of the extraction industries and the triple pivot points of climate change, biodiversity collapse, and the decline of the small town. We're lucky. Being off the highways allowed us to keep our small town alive. And it's a sanctuary from the drive-through fast foods and shopping mall parking lots. But in the
Oh, whoops.
Uh-oh, hold on.
We can't hear you.
fictional town.
Oh, there we go.
We've clearly turned our backs on the Thompson and Bonaparte rivers. Yes, they're good for water and sewage, but we certainly don't take advantage of the rivers, our lifeblood, for recreation or aesthetics. We can do so much more. We need to check our vision. Stewardship? Are we doing that? Are we valuing our heritage and our history, our natural environment? How do we communicate our love for Ashcroft and our desire to attract people here to enjoy our heritage, our history, and our natural environment? So we have some ideas. Here's one. Create an entry point to the village. It would be a rest stop, a gathering point, a view stop for the river and the osprey and the eagles, and yes, the mallards and the ganzers below. Furnished with rocks and planted with furnished with rocks and native plants, it would be a sanctuary for people and pollinators, birds, etc. Our hills are beautiful, our vista is unique. Not everyone can ramble there, but we can bring the ecology into town. Rabbit bush and sumac, grasses and sedges, An incredible variety of hardy, low-water natives can grow and flourish here. And even pretty things can provide interest and food and shelter for our endangered co-inhabitants. I'm sure we can improve our messaging. This is what we could have. Oh, that wasn't supposed to be in here. Sorry, moving on. I'm a little bit out of sync. We need to employ and engage our youth. Perhaps they could design a mural and do some painting that would really show our love. On a more ambitious note, we could have somebody, a young designer, add some architectural features, some shade, some color. We could plant a tree, provide some seeding, demonstrate our love and concern for our youth. Some of the places with the best view of the river are completely unutilized. Take advantage of our viewpoints. They're like pearls on a necklace. Identify and beautify rest and gathering points. Provide opportunities for socializing and recreating are important for our well-being. More and more of us are leaving our cars parked. The safest and most interesting neighborhoods require eyes on the street. Whoops. My script, yes, we need year-round toilets. Our demographic is aging. Our bladders are weakening. and even if we're so lucky to have young families, they too require facilities. This is not good enough. Some of my neighbors have reported that they've abandoned their front porch because it gives a full frontal view on people who are slipping behind the pump house to, what is the correct word? Pee in the river. How is it that in the middle of nowhere, for the convenience of travelers, charging points and toilets are available year-round? The educators from Communities in Bloom have made several suggestions about how we can develop our tree canopy. Old timers remarked that when they came here, the main street of Ashcroft was fully treed. Have we planted any new trees since the inception of Millennial Park? Yes, we can grow trees. They're in the hills above us, overlooking the town. We can do greenery. Nature will assist us. We can inventory and educate and most of all ensure that as our climate changes, it becomes hotter and drier. We have trees for shade, habitat, and air quality. We can suggest, indeed require, suitable low-water naturescaping. We can facilitate planting trees that in 20 years will provide shade and habitat, and require that businesses provide some sort of appropriate greenscaping. Some of our most successful businesses are in the business of moving rocks and indeed transforming landscapes. I was lucky to encounter, I apologize for this picture, I was lucky to encounter Irma Challis out for a walk on a cold, blustery day just a week ago. At 93 years old and with a walker, she insists on a daily walk. But there is no sidewalk, no protection from passing cars and trucks. In 20 odd years, when I'm 93, I do not want to have to walk on that road. Kylie Franklin doesn't insure her car in the summer. She does all her business on foot with a stroller and sometimes her older children on bikes. It's perilous, she says, to walk down Government Road where there's traffic on one side and a cliff on the other. indicated your willingness and your desire to make these changes. You have a bevy of artists, volunteer groups, local businesses, and people like me, busybodies with time, energy, and love to spare. Engage us. Why? Because really, we do love Ashcroft, where wellness awaits. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Anne. Are you going to be able to make that presentation available with, not so much the pictures, but the points?
I'm going to send you both the pictures, the viewpoint, the PowerPoint, and an accompanying document. And I'm just wondering, I could send it to all of the counselors individually, or I could just send it to Daniela, I guess, or you could tell me where to send that to.
Probably easiest to send it to
Yeah.
you. Easiest to send it just to Daniela, and then she can, or CAO Dick, and then she can send it out to all of us.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, cao@ashcroftbc.ca.
Yeah, I think I've got that.
Okay, perfect.
I did try and find everyone's individual email, and it was kind of difficult. I mean,
Oh, you've cut out again.
That was okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. What's that?
She said, okay, thank you very much.
Are you able to communicate with her? Can you tell her, we can't hear you?
I read her book.
Oh. Okay. Okay. All right, so we move on to the public input portion. This is the opportunity for members of the public to have input about items on tonight's agenda. Because there is a slight time lag between real time and things coming up on the live stream at home, we're going to take a 2-minute break. If you had a question or comment about an item on tonight's agenda, please formulate it now and type it in, and we will resume in 2 minutes. All right, we're back with public input. I understand there are no questions received on the live stream, but we do have Gloria Mertens on the line with some questions, so please go ahead.
Yes, good evening, and it's nice to see you, Mayor Roden, back up and about and doing well after your surgery.
Thank you.
I'll launch right into it because I've got quite a few questions. I will indicate where I'm talking by indicating the point on the agenda. Just realize I can't see you guys or hear you. Oops. There you go, I got you muted. First of all, 6.1, the burning bylaw, reviewing the burning bylaw. Just want council to consider what would be the insurance implications of allowing burning to take place in residential areas. Also consider what are the health implications of smoldering leaves, inadvertent burning of garbage such as plastics, and smoke concentrated by multiple piles burning in much smaller lots on neighborhood air quality. One thing I noticed in the letters that were submitted, I don't think the bylaw would prohibit the volunteer fire department doing preemptive burning of surrounding open spaces or even doing real life training burns. I think they would just have to get council approval. I think that's what I read. But one thing I was curious about in the burning bylaw was in the Village of Ashcroft's fire chief's letter, there was a referral to an engagement sign. And I'm just wondering if that is, if he's referring to a digital responsive sign, or is that just a bulletin board?
Hang on, I'm just going down to that letter. Oops. Everyone that is on, well, it's marked page 8 on your agenda, I believe. We would have to confirm with the acting fire chief what precisely he meant by a community education sign and where that would be placed. I believe he wants something similar to the water quality sign at the end of town down near the old fire hall to show that when there is a burning ban in place, which would presumably align with BC wildfire recommendations.
Okay, thank you. 6.3, the sand separator. Urban Systems vetted the 2 bids for the sand separator, and I'm just wondering what the cost of engaging Urban Systems is to do this. For instance, do they get a percentage of the tender, or is it a fixed rate? And if so, what is that fixed rate?
That will have to be something that staff gets back to you on, depending on what information they can release.
Okay, I'm just getting parts of what you're saying. Okay, I'll go on to the next one. 7.10, the Universal Farmer Care. Council endorsed support for Bill 213, Universal Farmer Care. As a Member of Parliament, Brad Viss voted to defeat the motion. I'm just wondering if Council will be following this up and question the Member of Parliament, or are you only paying lip service to the support?
We have regular meetings with MP Viss at which we bring up a number of topics, and nothing is off the table, and I'm sure that will form a part of an upcoming conversation.
Okay, excellent. And again, I'm only hearing part of what you're saying. So 10.2, potable water for Ashcroft. So now we're looking at the working groups notes. So the potable water for Ashcroft Indian Band, I'm just wondering, although the paperwork to get the land out of the ALR will require some public consultation and take up to, it says, maybe even more than half a year, does this stop the working group from initiating talks with the Ashcroft Indian Band and proceeding with the process?
No, not at all.
Excellent. The community garden. I'm wondering if the community, in the plan, there was a 6-foot fence that's conceptualized. And I know that Desert Sands Community School has a lovely school garden at the front of the school. It's not fenced. It is accessible to anyone. It is a welcoming, and it is, welcoming and very organic. It's like a little community garden, but the students plant it. I'm just wondering, would it not be a more more pleasant format to have the garden more open, as it is a community garden? It seems like a 6-foot fence, link fence, is very imposing structure and not at all inviting. It's almost like a prison, and but I'm not exactly sure of the intention.
Right now, the working group for the community garden is in a very preliminary stage, so everything is on the table right now. Everything is under discussion. The majority of the community gardens that I'm familiar with are fenced in some way. Perhaps to start off with, the fence might look a little stark, but generally over time, the fences are augmented, they're decorated, they're planted with climbing plants that are suitable to the environment. So nothing is off the table right now. This is a preliminary idea only, but thank you very much for the input.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to go back to 6.2. It will be my last comment, but I am going to talk a little bit longer on this one about question period. I brought this matter up, so I wanted to use my voice to speak for it, and that's why I'm calling in. And the thing is about having that information was having an open question period at the end of meetings on any matter, in addition to the public input right now before meetings. So I've been attending council meetings for over 3 years, pretty well regularly, and I've seen that there's been an erosion of public engagement, especially noticeable over these last 3 years. Before that, I'm not sure. Admittedly, I know that COVID health orders have restricted in-person attendance, but even before March 2020, there was eroding public participation. And that seemed to be the direction and the focus of council and administration. For example, allowing the public to dialogue with council at committee of the whole meetings was abruptly curtailed. Public could not engage during the committee of the whole meetings. Paper agendas were unavailable to any members of the public who did choose to attend meetings, making it hard to follow. There were time limits for public input that were not respected, that were in the procedural bylaw. I think they said it was always said 10 minutes, and in the procedural bylaw it says 15 minutes. The format of community forums were changed, which did not encourage the public as a whole interacting as a group or questioning council decisions. Now, since COVID protocols, of course, the public cannot attend in person, but often technology issues have resulted in citizens unable to call in, as happened to me, or see the meetings live. Many times questions, and this has happened frequently, are not answered because the items do not pertain directly to an agenda item. Now, I'm pretty careful about making sure my items do pertain to an agenda item, but anybody new who's just coming in, that really turns them off. It's intimidating to the public and they shut down. Since the beginning of this year, 2021, there's no longer a schedule for committee of the whole meetings or community forums. If you look on the calendar, they're not listed. So now it's up to the public to keep looking to see if they can find notice of a special meeting or committee of the whole meeting. And with the website not being updated regularly, this has proven to dissuade even more public involvement. In fact, even speaking with my own voice tonight has been a challenge to arrange. Now, I'm sure council could even think about hosting Zoom meetings like the school board does in order to allow for more public interaction. So just something that I found and I read, in 2012, Council of the Day expressed concern that the existing public consultation process was not sufficient to allow residents to provide feedback. They were concerned that the public was suddenly surprised by some of the direction council was taking. So they implemented the need to have notice of motions included in a monthly newsletter. So before they even started to talk about operational kind of issues, they also included such items as committee of the whole meetings, included them in committee of the whole meetings, and those committee of the whole meetings allowed the public attending to interact, to present their concerns by dialoguing with council. They also announced that they would host 2 community forums again so that the public could have open discussion. And again, the focus was on open dialogue and open discussion so that people could just entertain any kind of question. The idea of open discussion with council has been eroding ever since the CAO hired in September 2019 reinterpreted the meaning of committee of the whole, and since the new procedural bylaw was adopted early in 2020, which again expressly eliminated the phrase open dialogue with the public. So it's unfortunate that with any and every change in administration or council, that the public has to fight for any gains made simply to have their concerns heard, their suggestions considered, their comments recorded. Now, I know you're going to, in a public forum, I know you're going to say, and I appreciate that administration and councillors make themselves available to meet and talk individually with people privately. But at the same time, I think it would seem more efficient and better for the community to happen to field these questions in a public forum. Yes, it may be an uncommon practice to have public input at the beginning of the agenda as well as open question period at the end of a meeting that addresses any issue, but it would help engage the public, promote transparency. With respect to it being an uncommon practice, the school board and other jurisdictions do it, so it's not that uncommon. I might also note that it is an uncommon practice to have working groups instead of standing or select committees or commissions as per the community charter. So to incorporate that public oversight. So you just can't celebrate one uncommon, unorthodox practice and condemn the other for being uncommon practice. So that's my feedback for the council to consider when you look at looking at that procedural bylaw. And I know you have I know it does require a process to amend a procedural bylaw or any bylaw, but you have done it multiple times before for many different variances, and even the procedural bylaw you did it as well, since it was new. That's all I have to say. I can't hear or see what you're doing, so I guess I'll say good night.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, we move on to staff reports and item 6.1. We have the CAO report on the burning. Go back and just briefly recap. We're discussing the process for public consultation for the burning bylaw. We are not discussing particulars of the burning bylaw itself or any proposed changes, amendments, etc. We are merely considering whether or not to start a public consultation and engagement session at this point. And if we do decide to do that, how are we going to proceed? Councillor Anstead, if you don't mind my summing up, has said that he thinks that it is the time to start at least moving forward down this path in whatever manner we are able to. And when such time arrives as COVID restrictions are no longer so much of a factor, we can then have in-person meetings. Councillor Davenport, if you don't mind me summing up, was talking about the necessity of communication and how using even though we have a population, a demographic that might not be as comfortable with the technological aspect of holding meetings and participating in that format, it would be an education opportunity for more people to learn how to engage in that way, not just on the burning bylaw, but on a variety of other topics for the village. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one other point I was going to go to.
Yep, certainly.
And part of this is kind of like taking from what was presented to us and asking the youth, and perhaps having that education being because the youth, they grow up with those things, right? They know exactly how to do them. So part of that engagement, I believe, in the education of this is, I mean, it's sort of congruent in a way to what we're talking about, the whole education piece of creating a very a more virtual friendly Ashcroft. And I think this will be able to use this multiple times that we're going to have to talk about the burning bylaw as an example to move us forward to be more virtual friendly for a lot of different people. So
Okay, thank you. And I think too, certainly I think even when COVID is more behind us than it is now, certainly virtual meetings are still going to, I think, for better or worse, form a large part of the conversation and the discussion and the way of reaching people. So I certainly think that it is valuable to continue to explore different ways to communicate virtually, whether it's via Zoom, whether it's via Microsoft Teams, whether it's via live streaming. I think at the same time, we do have to acknowledge and recognize that a lot of people in the community are uncomfortable with this technology. They do not want to use it. They do not want to learn how to use it. And we need to respect that. And I think we need to, at the same time, if we decide to make the burning bylaw the canary in the coal mine for how we are going to communicate on things like this in this new world, we cannot and must not forget the people who will be shut out if we go to a purely technological virtual format. So I think there needs to be some thought about how we will reach those people until such time as we can again add public meetings back to the mix.
Yeah.
Because there will come a time when we can again have a forum at the community hall and advertise it, and people come to the hall and are there to physically ask questions and interact. Until that time, I think part of the equation is how do we reach those people? And how do we make sure that they feel fully included? Because especially when it comes to any discussion of a burning bylaw, a large number of the people whose health would be most impacted by the burning bylaw discussion are going to be the ones who are least able to communicate virtually. So that's just my throwing that into the mix. But certainly I think that starting to go down the road, and this is going to be, as has been mentioned, a very an issue on which a lot of people will have thoughts. And in order to fully engage with people and make sure everyone's voice is heard, this is going to be a lengthy process. So I think starting down that road is a good idea. And I suspect the first steps will be very public meeting virtually at this time. And also I like the idea, as CAO Dick has put in the report, having a mail out, go out to people. And not have it as part of the newsletter, like the newsletter, but have it as a standalone document, so that we can start to collect that feedback and let people know that this is part of the this is not the process itself. This is part of it. Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I do believe if we also were to ask the hub to help, they do have rooms where they could socially set people up that were uncomfortable and perhaps use a screen that they could watch the whole process happening, like if it was happening here. And then they would have the opportunity that they could maybe go to one mic and speak. And that might work for some people that either don't have computers or, you know, and I think the hub actually, if it's not true, I think they're setting up a room that will be set up for that type of technology.
Right.
So I think that would work.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Anderson? Director Benowith? Who doesn't have a mic, so you can use sign language? That's fine. No? So, what is the direction to staff? What direction would council like to go in? Would we like to start down this road of public consultation and engagement regarding the burning bylaw? Councillor Tate.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I'd like to move that we start going ahead with the preliminary questions on the burning bylaw by setting up a meeting, a virtual meeting, and sending out questionnaires through the mail.
Now, does council want the ability to go over the questions and have input into the questions? So perhaps the idea would be to bring this back to the next meeting once staff has had a chance to formulate, so that then council can look at the questions, see what's on there, and then have input into it. Okay. Because I think the same questions should be at a virtual public consultation as go out in the mail.
So I'll second her motion. And perhaps, do I need to amend that if we want to state that we want it to go out the mail out first before we set up the virtual?
I think that would be something to discuss when it comes back to the table,
Okay.
what we want the timing to look like.
Okay.
Please.
Motion back to make sure I got the gist of it. The council begin the preliminary engagement with public by setting up a virtual meeting and develop questionnaire and bring that information back to the next council meeting for consideration.
Okay. Does that make sense? Because the motion does ask to set up a meeting. Does that need to be amended in some way if we want to have a look at this?
So you want me to change it to? That's what I'm asking is, I want to make sure I got the gist of that motion.
Yeah, I think that we want to have discussion first
Okay.
before we set up a virtual meeting.
Okay, so begin the preliminary engagement by developing the questionnaire and establishing the process for the public meeting, something like that?
And bringing it back to council.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So we do have a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder?
I did.
Pardon me?
I had seconded.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? So staff will be developing some questions to be asked. Those will come back to council for the subsequent meeting, and we will look over them at that time and see if there's anything to add, subtract. Okay. Councillor Armstead.
I just wanted to express a thank you to CAO Dick for helping me with the presentation to council this evening.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion on the question then? All those in favor? Carried. Move on to item number 6.2, public request to include question period at end of agenda. Oops, I'm still on the fire letters. There we go. So again, there is no staff recommendation. There is no need for a decision tonight. This is an opportunity for council and staff to have a discussion about this item and then go away with our thoughts and then come back at the next meeting with something more definite. So until about, where are we now, 2021? Until the spring of 2019, or summer of 2019, we did not have a question period public input component at all of the council meetings. We had committee of the whole meetings once a month, although those often got dropped because the second council, the meeting of the month, is sometimes canceled in September because of UBCM, in December because of Christmas. So those committee of the whole meetings did not happen. So we did bring in the question period, which was initially at the end of the meeting. It has now been moved since last year to the beginning of the meeting. Now, a quick survey of a number of municipalities, and CAO did looked up some as well. And I think our findings were pretty similar in that some have one at the beginning and end, different structures. Some have one, either at the beginning or end. And I found two that didn't seem to have a question public input period at all. Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that a lot of the questions that people think they would like to bring up to council can be addressed through the office by calling to the CAO or to someone in the village to find out the answers. I don't think that they all have to come to the council for the answers that they're looking for. You know, if we were to open it up to any question, I think that that could become quite time consuming. And personally, I like the questions at the beginning. It gives us some time to think about what the person has said. And then when we get to that part of our agenda, we may have a little bit more thought on exactly what has transpired or someone else's thoughts towards that. And as far as having the meetings, I do believe that now it's much better use of our time because we can have anyone address the council by just letting Daniela know and do a presentation, as Anne did today. So rather than scheduling it and then it has to fit with their schedule this way, I think the people that want to address us, it fits their schedule better because they can say, oh, next council meeting I would like to do a presentation. So I'm quite happy with it the way that it is.
And now I actually do prefer it because it does give you some insight as to what the perspective is, and I think that also that having it the questions be open-ended. Quite often, Mayor Road and I hear us say as council that we don't know the answer to that. Staff will get back to you. So in a way that we need to be, you know, we can't answer everything because we don't know the information that the public is going to ask us. If it's pertaining to things on the agenda, certainly we can give what we know and what we need to know and direct staff. I think from the standpoint of staff, I hear a lot of these questions do take a lot of time in their day-to-day, you know, to research and so on. So there's no, it's like being a DJ. You can't please everybody all the time. So I think in terms of what has worked, hearing the public and what they have to say and us hearing about it and letting it sink in throughout the whole meeting, from our standpoint, I believe it might be more effective. Again, I talking to the staff and addressing smaller issues that probably don't have to come to council. And the door's always open, of course, but it does take council, or it does take staff time to do that. So as council, we have to be prepared and cognizant of that for our staff. So.
Thank you, Councillor Davenport. Councillor Anstead, Councillor Anderson, do you have anything
I echo both Councillor Toohey and Councillor Davenport in their opinions regarding this. I was also skeptical when we did change it to the beginning, but I find that it works very well. However, it's my understanding that the question that was raised is more not to change anything, but to add. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so the request was that we would add some time at the end of the meeting for
Yes.
further questions.
At the moment, and this is something in my research is common with municipal councils, is that a question period, a public comment period, a public input period, it goes under a variety of names. There is almost always a stipulation that it is about the agenda of the night.
Yes.
Questions, comments, input must pertain to something on the agenda. So from what Ms. Mertens was saying, she would like to see something of a more general nature, something more like at a committee of the whole, where if we had time at the end of it, we would just open the floor. As has been mentioned, a number of questions that come up are operational in nature, so they're not something that council can answer. And a lot of times they are questions that, because they are not on the agenda and we don't have the answers at our fingertips, you do have to say, I do not know the answer, staff will get back to you, because there is no point in guessing or guesstimating or ballparking. It is something that then staff deals with, and I must recognize here that staff is excellent at answering queries that do come in. If we do have to give the answer, whether it's myself, whether it's CEO Dick or CFO Bella, if we say we will get back to you, we will get back to you. Staff are excellent at following up and making sure that those questions are answered. So one option that I have seen in a couple of the communities that I did look at was that at the beginning of the meeting, they do have a comment section on the night's agenda. It's not the time for questions, but it's the time to say, as Ms. Mertens did tonight regarding item 6.3 that you will be discussing later, I would like to say this. And as at a town hall forum or a community forum, then it's our job to sit and listen and say thank you very much for your input. We'll take that into consideration. Then what they do at the end of the meeting is they have a 10-minute question period about what you've just heard and seen. Because as with a number of items on the agendas at any given meeting, we are not making a decision that night. We are discussing it like we're discussing this right now. We're not going to make a decision tonight. So that would be the opportunity for someone to say, okay, during your discussion on item 6.3, you said this, could you explain further, or whatever the question is. So that is just another model that is out there. Comments at the beginning, questions at the end. So, just something else to think. Anyone else have, I don't have my glasses on, so if unless you're waving frantically. Oh, there we go. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on this? So this will come back to the next meeting as something that we will make a decision about at that time. Any other comments about the points raised about community forums? We do have a public budget meeting coming up on the 26th of April, which by its nature is fairly far ranging or encompassing because the budget encompasses all things. And then we have another one coming up on, I believe, May 10th is the second budget meeting. I'm putting these off again. So we do have those coming up. And yes, COVID-19 has presented a challenge in communication. Every municipality in the province is struggling with how to communicate most effectively. As I said, I think we will be moving to some hybrid model in the future of in-person and online meetings. But I think that as soon as we are able to start having in-public meetings again, that is something that we will definitely be looking into. How can we once again make these a part of our regular schedule? So do we need a motion to direct staff to, or does this just come back for a decision at the next meeting?
We can bring it back for, it's the council's discretion. I can bring it back for a decision at the next meeting and just write a report with all of the options and the considerations that were listed today.
All right, thank you. All right, before we move on, any last thoughts about this? No, in that case, we move to item 6.3, which is the sand separator tender. And we do have a recommendation on page 12. What is council's pleasure on this item? Councillor Anstett.
I move with the recommendation of staff that council approve the lowest cost tender as recommended by the village's engineers, Urban Systems from Drake Excavating Limited in the amount of $233,900.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Toohey seconds that. Is there any discussion? Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. So have we ever used this company before, and do we have any examples of work that they have done?
Director Benoit.
Your Worship, Council, so Drake Contracting, we have not used them before. They were one of the people put in, but all our quotes and whatever, we do go for reference, and they do have very good references behind them. And through companies that they have worked for, they do perform very good work ethics and timely manner.
Thank you. Great, thank you. CFO Bala.
Fortunate being, because of the experience with fair number of tenders, is that we look at quality a lot of times. Sometimes it's excessive, like for the really big $10 million water treatment plant, we did a separate qualification first. Smaller ones we look at, but we look at references. So it's not, if it's needed, then we don't accept the lowest cost tender, we will give proper reasoning.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none on the question, all those in favor? Carried. Section 7, correspondence. We have item 7.1, City of New Westminster, letters to Minister of Labour and Minister of Tourism, re-support for laid-off hotel and tourism industry workers. They are requesting a letter of support, and we have two models here, which I presume we can cut and copy and paste. So I would like to move that we send the letters of support to the Minister of Labour and Minister of Tourism as per the examples provided. Councillor Davenport, thank you. Any discussion on the question? All those in favor? Carried. And we have a number of items for information correspondence. I would like to move to receive and file. Councillor Anderson, thank you. Were there any items that anyone wanted to address in the information correspondence? No. Councillor Toohey.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Roden. The Brenda Mine, is everybody aware of where that is? Okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew.
Any further discussion? Seeing none on the question, all those in favor? Carried. Unfinished business. We have the task manager on page 41. I'd like to move to receive and file for information. Councillor Anstett seconds. Thank you very much. Any discussion on this? Nope. On the question then, all those in favor? Carried. Reports, recommendations from committees of the whole and commissions. 10.1, emergency response plan and evacuation update, working group meeting notes. This is simply for council's information, no need to receive and file. Correct? No. So any chance for anyone to have if you have any questions of anyone who is on the working group? No. So we have the emergency response and evacuation plan update working group, potable water to Ashcroft Indian Band working group, North Ashcroft Reservoir Working Group, and the Community Garden Heritage Park and Tree Assessment Working Group. Councillor Davenport.
I just wanted to make a comment about these working groups and how, from the perspective of council who's been at it for 2 years, that I personally feel like I'm part of working towards things now. And not that we weren't before, but I feel like we're participating and making decisions that are based on our strategic plan, and I thank staff for thinking forward on this and creating an opportunity for not only staff to work with the fire department and other stakeholders in our community, but also other citizens as well, and including them, and thinking forward about what these working groups actually look like. I think that's what I personally wanted when we started, and I'm glad it's here now. So thank you so much.
I understand that working groups, as opposed to select committees, are a new innovation or a new way of doing things. It's slowly, they seem to offer more flexibility than the old committee model. So is this something that more municipalities are beginning to adopt or look at?
I think it's something that has been ongoing in Ontario for some time. The more and more British Columbia communities are beginning to embrace the model of working groups, but as suggested earlier by Ms. Mertens, it's not a part of the process in the community charter, so it's not a recognized council committee, but more of an operational staff operation, and we just invite council to participate in it because there's value there.
Well, it is some breaking down the wall that I think can sometimes exist between council and operation, because it is a little bit of a boundary. You don't want people overstepping the boundary, but it's also a way of including council with the operational side of things that we don't sometimes get to see.
My experience with working groups is the minutes are not generally on council agendas. We're just taking that extra step for transparency and to keep the public informed by putting our notes onto the agenda and keeping that oversight.
Councillor Dewey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I also am enjoying doing it this way so much more. I really feel the connection between the staff and the community, and we're all discussing, and you can hear different views without having to go through someone else to hear what the thought is or how it would work with the union or how it would, and it just makes it so much easier. And I feel like I'm participating more and involved more in the community. And that way, if someone knows what working group I'm on and they come and talk to me, I'm able to let them know, and I feel more informed myself that I can pass that on to the people of our community. So I'm really enjoying doing it this way. So I thank staff for working so hard to get it to this point.
Anyone else? Nope. All right, and thank you to Chris, who is not here, but please pass on our thanks to her, because she's the one who's producing all these reports for us.
Yes.
So she's going to have a really even more superb knowledge of how the village works, and she already does, because of being on all the working groups. And I do like the concept drawings for the community garden as well.
Oh, yes.
Because I love concept drawings as a thing. Anyway, and it's also amazing looking at the aerial view how small 60 by 60 feet really is when you look at it and go, ooh, that's not very big. So, you know, that really helps with the conception of it.
Yeah.
You say community garden and everyone's picturing something different. Speaking of community gardens, if you have not had a chance to see it, please do check out the one in Clinton next time you're up there, because it really is a lovely community garden. They've done a fantastic job with the landscaping and the decorating and everything. So that, I think, is a really nice model of what we could do here in time. Councillor Dewey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I just want to add about the community garden. There's, which we haven't determined yet, that there's so many different ways of looking at a community garden. It was mentioned by Ms. Mertens about having the fencing up, but we have different ways of looking at community gardens, whether it's something that's going to be open to the community to come in and help themselves, or if it's actually a plot that someone applies to have, which makes a total difference. You don't want to have people being able to get into where you're doing your gardening because you live in an apartment and this is your food source. So yeah, we haven't quite determined that yet, but yeah, I just want to clarify that it's not necessarily going to be an open to the public type of community garden.
Great. Councillor Jones?
I might just add to that too, because the community garden, from where it's situated, is right by our rail system. So it's a safety measure as well, because obviously the community garden is, people in our community would probably encourage their kids to be part of the process, I would think, I would hope. So if you're digging up the tomatoes and your grandson is off, doing something, you want to make sure that there's a security situation there. So when we were being asked to look at the fencing, that was immediately where my head went. Is it's a security issue. I would be very. It would ensure that the safety of the people who choose to be there.
Councillor, your grandsons would never run off.
Oh, heck no.
Never. Only if you had one at a time you could keep track, but if you had all six, whoop.
And I mean, again, Clinton has some foliage on the outside going up their fence. I was at the one in Fort St. James, and they had decorative pieces of artwork similar to what Kathleen Knisewicz is suggesting for the garden behind the E4I Society office, so that might very well be a way to go. We do have some fantastic artists in the community, and it doesn't have to be extravagant or elaborate, and it can be built up over time. Even just things like the painted hearts and flowers that are outside the hub. That would be enough to cheer it up while still providing that little bit of privacy and that bit of safety and security with the railway on the one side. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Move on to the mayor's report. I omitted the details of my surgery because it's not even that interesting to me, and I didn't think it would be to anyone else. So does anyone have any questions about anything else here, non-surgical related? Historic Hat Creek, as you know, plans to open the entire site as of May 1st, which is very exciting. I found it very interesting to hear the film commissioner talk about the impact of filming in our area. The ratio seems to be 3 to 1. For every dollar that is directly spent by a film crew in our area, that gets multiplied threefold for the economic impact, because then that is the spending by the people, the businesses, by the local people who get hired, etc. So she did point out that there has been a real surge in reality TV shows, and the thinking seems to be that a few years ago no one really thought of the impact these would have, but the reality shows like Highway Through Hell, Mud Mountain Haulers, for example, Rust Valley Restorers, they have decent sized crews. I think when these shows started out, they thought it would be one guy with a handheld camera, and that's it. They come in for 3 days. Now they're quite long shoots. They're in an area for quite a long time with a number of people, and that is increasingly becoming a good source of film revenue. And the other exciting thing was the miniature railway at Hastings, which I'm just so thrilled about. So there you go. And then we have a report here from Councillor Anderson on her working groups. Oh, CEO Dick.
You brought a late item.
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. I do have a late item. I have a letter here from the South Cariboo Sportsmen Association. I will not read the whole thing, but it's attention Mayor and Council. On behalf of the directors of the South Cariboo Sportsmen Association in Ashcroft, our club would like to thank the village for the grant support you have provided us over the years. The grants from the village have assisted us in rebuilding our facilities and infrastructure. They are planning another raffle, largely to do some work on the roads, which have been washed out by soil erosion. Attached, please find a thank you certificate from the South Cariboo Sportsmen Association to the village for your continued support. Again, from all our membership, thank yous, signed by Ken Brown, President, Wayne Wereniak, Vice President, and we have a very nice certificate. So, received that on Friday. Thank you for the reminder. And Councillor Anderson,
Oh,
anything on your...
basically, it's just a repeat again of what's already in the earlier in the agenda here. But yeah, with the Ashcroft Indian Band potable water, we're kind of at a standstill, more or less. We can carry on with some discussions, but we are at a bit of a standstill because we need the land to be brought out of the AOR. And the community garden, everything is in its very preliminary stages. It's not a set 60 by 60 where we haven't decided on any of those things. I'm looking forward to doing an evaluation with everyone. March 30th, the site assessment, and an arborist will be brought in to have a look at the trees and plantation.
Great.
Yeah, so happy to be on both of these working committees, working groups. Won't say the word committee. I find that it's nice to feel that inclusion, working with operations staff and so on too, and just having other people like Andrea Walker was in from Community in Bloom, was in our Heritage Park and Community Garden Working Group, and a lot of good information, and just having that input from different people, I think that's very valuable. So, very happy to be here.
Great, thank you very much. And we have no need to go into a closed meeting, so I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Second by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor?